I still have my homemade sign.
You're still the coolest. So the first slide just shows our team name and the date. And number one, who had number one?
I was number 1 and 2, so I'll start today.
Okay.
So I was talking this week about Starbucks profits, cost margins, and pricing. I had to first discuss what keeps their profits high and then what keeps their costs low, which are both equally important when it comes to being a successful company and competing and playing to win, whatever you want to call it, within the market. So things that keep Starbucks profit margins high include what I've listed here. So product differentiation. They've really capitalized on making these very specialized drinks like the Frappuccino and such. That is something that was kind of introduced by Starbucks, at least at the major scale that they've introduced it at. And then also, like in India, for example, they've put a more tea-focused differentiation, just something different that you can get at a larger scale. Also, the Starbucks ambiance, that is something that they really have their business model built on, and it has allowed them to keep loyal customers in the long term. Again, that goes with unique product and experience. Both that product and the ambience together create that what customers are willing to pay for. Incredible customer service, we talked about that last week a lot, but they've done continuous training. And then they're a high-end recognizable brand, whether that is internationally or in the United States. On the flip side, for keeping costs low in Starbucks pricing model, they do charge significantly higher than a lot of their competitors. So if you think about how much like a coffee would cost at a grocery store or at a gas station, those are a lot lower than what Starbucks charges. But that's because they have also built in that differentiated product and ambiance and a unique experience. And part of that is just choosing the right customers. They have
Oh, we lost Kaylee. It's almost like the old story of when BMWs are built, they tell the engineering team, go build the car and then come back to us and then we'll price it. When we know, because you have to meet this certain standard, which in turn drives the price, which is sort of backwards from the way like a Toyota is built. So they say, mid-sized market, we need to make a car that costs $30,000. Do what you can for 30. BMW would say, go build the car with these specs and then come back and tell us how much we need to charge, and we'll figure out how much to charge for it.
The one thing that I found a little interesting in my research, though, is it's not necessarily that they were getting the highest quality of things, but they were figuring out, especially like with coffee grounds, for example, how to get that product at a lower price but charge a higher profit margin. So I do agree to some extent. They look, oh, go ahead.
I would say, while at the same time trying to maintain the ethical growing standards and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. They've tried to position themselves as an ethical company as well, which is why people are probably willing to pay more. And it goes back to that inelasticity of their target consumer. But I agree with you 100%.
I'll just add in there, guys, like when you go on to my question, it kind of feeds off of one of your questions. I don't know if it's this one or the next question, but it kind of feeds off of it when it talks about the low cost leadership versus the differentiator leadership. So, in the book, it tells us like, well, in one of the videos, it goes to talking about, you have to select one or the other. You can't focus on both because you'll company will fail. They won't, excel as well as they will. So I don't kind of think Starbucks is, the low cost leadership game. I think they're the differentiator.
Right.
Connect the dots. Connect the dots.
Definitely connecting the dots.
Yeah, I think ours is overlap because mine also talked about it being a differentiator, which I agree with you, Sasha, on. So I do think they operate as a differentiator, and then I'm not going to repeat these things because a lot of these are what I just talked about, but it's the experience. Sorry, I must have changed formatting because it didn't look like this when I uploaded it, but I'm sorry. Thank you for changing that, whoever's working on it.
It's not moving for me. It's very weird.
Huh.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
because I
come
did
with-
notice that, but it wasn't like that when I uploaded it. I can try and re-upload it afterwards if that's easiest.
Keep talking, it's okay, I'll play with it here.
Cool. So we pretty much talked about why they act as a differentiator. So I think their core competencies overall are their product adaptation, differentiation, recognizable high-end brand image, employee-centric model, and the ambience and customer experience, which I think is something we've all discussed both the first week and the second week. So another part of this question was, is it a key aspect of Starbucks' business model to operate as a differentiator? And I think so, because the coffee market is highly saturated already, or beverage market. And low-cost beverages are easily accessible. And maybe that's a little confusing the way I wrote that. Starbucks isn't the low-cost beverage, but you have other options available. So I'm trying to say there. And then offering unique products is part of their core competency.
I thought it was interesting that their competition is considered McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
And in my brain, it's not, it's like apples and oranges.
No, I would say, right, I would say in terms of scale and size, but not product. I mean, I think you're talking, the difference there is not, I mean, they're both ubiquitous, all three are ubiquitous, but one is a Cadillac, one is a Buick, and one is, a Chevy. I mean, it's,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? I don't know of another competitor that has that sort. I mean, Caribou Coffee is regional, Pete's is regional, California and Oregon. I mean, I'm thinking if you're looking at the experience, the only thing comparative to a Starbucks is maybe a nice local coffee shop, and maybe like a Pete's, which is a regional player, or a Caribou, which is a regional player. I mean, Tim Hortons is not, I would not put those two,
No.
and they're not in the same thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Or McCafe
Yeah.
or Dunkin'. And McCafe, clearly they compete on price because they run discounts all the time.
I
And
mean, I'm not gonna walk around with a Dunkin' Donuts shirt and feel all cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's Starbucks. I mean,
Everyone.
it's a reward program. I mean, Starbucks has a reward program, the Star Rewards, or whatever they're called. But I mean, other than the scale of the operation, I don't really see combining those two. And if you've ever had a Frappuccino compared to one of those McCafe things, well, I mean, one is, I mean, that McCafe is tasty, but if you have a very sweet taste, but I mean, they're a lot sweeter than the Starbucks stuff. The Starbucks stuff tastes more like coffee.
Yeah. I think the important thing to note here, though, is like, yes, while one is higher quality, that's not necessarily what everyone's looking for in a so some people really do want the lower cost. So that is a competitor to Starbucks, even though, like, if you're looking purely on the luxurious, unique, higher end product, which does make like that drug or the gas station coffee competitor to Starbucks. But I agree, like, it seems like
I'm
they
guilty.
have
I like 7-Eleven coffee, I have to confess. You know what's really crazy about coffee for me? You guys probably think I'm insane, but I can't drink coffee out of a styrofoam cup. It's got to be in a paper cup on to go.
Well,
Is that
I'm having
crazy?
coffee right now, actually. My thought of it looks big.
I literally won't go to certain places if they serve it in that styrofoam type cup. I won't go there.
The Dunkin' is out. Well, of course, haven't they mostly done away with those? I mean, they're doing away with them. Trying to.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be very good.
Consumer taste, I mean, there's probably other people like that out there. So like you might have a great product, but if you put it in the wrong presentation, it's just not going to work.
What do you think about Starbucks? They got rid of they don't do polystyrene cups. They do waxed paper cups. They have the lids, but they have the wooden or the bamboo stirrers. They don't use plastic.
Yeah.
Or negative.
Well, they're very into sustainability.
That is correct.
Yeah. It's again that like just positioning themselves.
Point she mentioned, when she was talking about taste differentiation. I mean, look, Starbucks has a nickname, Charbucks, to a lot of people, and that's pejorative. I mean, that it's too roasty to say, so.
I don't drink coffee.
I don't either. I'm not a coffee drinker. I love it now, but
I think every time we're having our Zoom, I'm just eating Pepsi or something.
You're getting the caffeine though.
Yeah.
You sure still won't want to drink coffee as much as you'll know about it after this course?
Yeah.
Right.
Haley, this
Yeah, I'll
last,
continue on this one. I'm not going to go through each one, but I supposed to do an RBV analysis Starbucks. I understand this is a busy slide, but I think it's the best way to present it in this graph format. So I coded it Y for yes and N for no, and gave just a brief description on why I thought it did or didn't meet the valuable, rare, difficult to imitate, and non-substitutable factors that are required in the RBV analysis. I think overall, if you just look at this graph as a whole, there's a lot more yeses than nos. And the nos are things that I think Starbucks has specifically chosen not to focus on because they can't be exactly the best at everything. So does anyone want to talk about anything specific on this chart or anything that
a related point, kind of segue into the next question, and just kind of in the interest of time, maybe we can jump around a little bit. But there is a discussion of the RBV model and what everybody thinks about it. If it's useful and if it has merit, if Barney makes a compelling case, or if Porter's model is better. So, Kaylee, when you were doing that assessment, what was your thought on RBV? Does it have merit, or because I kind of struggled with that myself?
I do, but I don't think it necessarily talks about. Can you go back to the slide real quick? I was writing about this in my other paper for this class, but it doesn't really talk about the adaptability of a brand, in my opinion. This just talks like, can it be imitated? Is it non-substitutable? But how does it? I don't think this demonstrates how it can adapt over its lifetime, over the business life cycle. So I see the positives to it, but I thought it was kind of something that didn't take as much thought and research, and maybe it's just the way I did it, though.
Yeah, because I think the fourth question is RBV, and I was tasked with doing that question, and I got to tell you, I saw strengths in it and I saw weaknesses. There are some sort of gaping holes about how you can just look internally to resources and capabilities, and I just felt like the external factors in the marketplace, whether it's competitors or weather or COVID right now, like I don't know how you could have a model without really looking at what's out inside your external landscape. So I don't know, Kaylee, kind of jumping around here, if that factored into what you were thinking about here, if they're just doing their own thing, or they are worried about what Dunkin' Donuts is doing and so forth.
I think by answering if it's difficult to imitate, it's almost impossible to not consider competition. Like for example, their employees and the continuous training, that's incredibly expensive and it's difficult to imitate. And I think they compare that to other companies, and can other companies easily create that same employee-centric model? And I think the answer is no, other companies can't, but yes, Starbucks has.
And just to piggyback on that, what was I about to say? Darn it, I lost my train of thought. It was about I think pestle, about the external environment. Like you have to look at all that. I just don't see how a company can be so successful or just reach that peak and not take that into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, Sasha. I mean, I agree. That's why I'm saying I struggled so much with RBV. Just exactly what you said. And the customer experience is so critical. And I was thinking through that, and you think about a company like, Nordstrom's, for example. They are like renowned for their customer experience. Yeah. I mean, you can buy something and return it to Nordstrom like 3 years later. They won't ask any questions. You don't even have to have a receipt. I mean, but you know what? They're like basically going bankrupt. I mean, obviously there's other factors like COVID, but they were struggling before this whole downturn in the retail market because of the virus. So, is the customer experience enough? Costco also has a pretty similar return policy where, you can pretty much bring anything back to Costco and they'll take it. So I think there's some differentiation there as well.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I think that's a good point.
Well, and Costco has implemented technology to, okay, so the old story is that, you know, a person once brought a set of tires back to Nordstrom and they took the tires back anyway, even though they don't sell tires.
I was going to say, where are you going with this story?
But that's an urban legend.
Whoa, they sell tires.
The story was that, you know, a customer came in and they returned tires and they gave them their money back. So Costco, of course, has employed technology. When Costco gets your member number, those purchases are on record forever. Okay,
Yeah.
they can look you up by any number of places, but you have to have bought it there to
Sure.
return. Okay, if they can't find it on your past purchases, because every purchase is made using your membership card, you can't get a refund.
But it's
You know,
such an important like factor, you know, Jeff. Like you think about it, like right now, I'm kind of weighing like buying some AC for my garage, right? A little window AC for my garage when I work out. And like I'm looking at like prices and I'm like, I probably want to buy this at Costco just in case I need to return it in a year. Because even though I could get maybe a better price at Walmart or Best Buy, I know Costco a year from now will take it back if it's broke.
And
You know, it's kind of, and that goes through your thought process as you purchase.
Service warranty just by buying it there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, and yeah, I love Costco. I'm a huge fan of Costco. Since 2000. So.
Great. I'll hurry through these next two slides so you guys can get to yours, but I just had to briefly discuss intellectual property and then evaluate whether it's a key performance factor. Obviously, Starbucks has multiple forms of intellectual property, which I've listed here and then provided a picture or two.
Love the pictures.
Yeah, thank you. And I do think that it is a key performance factor, partly because it's incredibly important to be an internationally recognized brand, which Starbucks has positioned itself as. And I again bring it always back to that employee interactions. Maybe that doesn't quite match there, but what I was thinking is that if you can almost match like a personality to the Starbucks name, if that makes sense. So they've like trade secrets, there's training standards have made large scale Starbucks feel like that smaller scale hometown coffee shop. So that's kind of a trademark or trade secret of Starbucks. And then just, you know, your overall other Starbucks things that I feel like are repeated multiple times on these slides.
It is interesting to see how the questions overlap.
Yeah. Cool. And I finally had to end with a simplified SWOT analysis and then evaluate whether it works for Starbucks. Again, we've discussed ad nauseum about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. We haven't talked about as much, but last week we discussed the expansion to Asian markets, innovative product offerings due to COVID-19, like how that's going to continue to shape Starbucks's ambiance. Like how can you create an ambiance when you don't have people in store enjoying coffee and their products? And then their continued research into changing tastes worldwide. And then threats, we talked about this earlier, but the competitors, whether we see those as direct or not, Dunkin', Caribou. And then coffee beverages is a saturated market regardless of where you are in the world. Some are more saturated than others, but it is not necessarily the easiest market to be in. And I just related it to COVID-19 because I thought that was a more real world example for all of us right now. I do think SWOT analysis is more valuable than the RBB analysis, and I'd be interested to see, John, what your opinion is on that. But I do think SWOT is an easy way to just quickly analyze throughout life cycles, which I think is incredibly important for businesses because, you know, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are always changing. And I think it helps you identify future of before, and then it's easily repeated.
I think it's interesting that they no longer want to use this analysis. I was surprised by that.
Yeah. I don't know if it needs as much time, but I do think it's a quick way to be like, okay, where do we stand now and where do we want to be in the future? So.
Yeah, it's interesting that our professor is not really big on SWOT. He's given a couple, I think, good reasons why, not being as dynamic. But I can tell you my own personal experience with different client engagements. I've referred to a SWOT analysis quite a few times.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm dating myself.
To it's everyone can understand it, and I think that's sometimes more important than being the best means of measurement.
I think he
Starting
talked about
point.
it as being outdated because it takes so long to gather all the information. By the time you get everything to analyze it, it's like it's
Changed.
changed. Yeah,
Yeah.
technology and algorithm.
Excuse me.
But I did just get a pop-up that said this meeting is about to end in 10 minutes, so I don't know what's going on.
How is that? Oh, maybe because we're sorry, I didn't mean to talk that long. I'm done though.
But
Last time it took us out though, right?
it didn't kick us out, and it popped up. I just clicked it off, so I'm just throwing that out there. Like,
I think in the interest of time, we can kind of run through these. I think everybody, like we should have a discussion and everybody just needs to be captured on film.
Mm-hmm.
Does that work for everyone?
So what are we going to do?
Unless you want to be here till 10 o'clock at night.
Semester set of classes.
Oh, guys, sorry.
We have to figure out how do we actually make a business that's going to be
That's one of my.
sustainable. I know a lot of you.
No. That was weird.
He can be in a
little lecture from Harvard there.
Like I said, bringing in a ringer. New team member from Harvard.
Okay, number 3, John, is this you?
Yeah, so intellectual property rights, I'm pretty adamant that I think we need it. I really believe we would suffer, with innovation, with creativity, would significantly decline without the IP protection. There's been a whole ecosystem that's evolved around IP in terms of, regulators, federal agencies, practice areas at international law firms, courts. It's obviously something that's very important. I think it fuels progress, and without it, other creative individuals would simply not bother. It wouldn't make sense for them to invest the time and energy into developing an idea into a, whether it's something creative like a work of art or music or film or something like pharma, which potentially could really save someone's lives. I mean, ultimately, I really feel that IP protection helps society, and without it, we would we'd lose out on some great things, some great innovation. With respect to millennials and their position that they're not so interested in this idea of protecting IP rights, I feel as they age and they have more of a vested interest in different things, they'll have a better understanding of IP and why it's so valuable. I gave the example of, their favorite music artist that struggles. You hear these stories about, country music stars living in their car and, eating ramen noodles and they finally make it. Should their works of art really not be protected after all that hard work? So I think it's important, and that's why we have copyright protection, royalties, licensing, and that type of thing for original products.
Yeah, I agree. As a millennial, I understand.
So do you think any of that is motivated by the existence and their acceptance of open source software?
I didn't hear it at first.
I was saying, do you think that it's possible that millennials' sort of lack of respect for IP is due to their adoption and their love of open source software and what they...
Absolutely, Jeff. I think you're definitely right.
I think that we respect we're freely, we don't, a lot of, I don't even think it's millennials. I think it's the generation after the millennials. But I think we respect IP because any type of work that I've done or anybody else, you deserve to keep that for yourself. And prosper off of that. You don't deserve for anybody to come and just take over your work or claim your work if it's your work. So I think a lot of times a lot of folks aren't educated on that, and they, when you don't know, you don't know. So I don't think that they don't respect it. I just don't think a lot of folks are educated on it
Yeah.
or know how to have something copyrighted or have something patent, because patent takes forever to, and they're not, it's not like you just snap your finger and have something patent or trademark. It's expensive if you don't, because those documents, I've tried to trademark some things before, and those documents, if you don't have a trademark lawyer, it's huge. And then they send you all these rejection letters and you got to do it over, so that's just my 2 cents as a millennial.
In my other class that with Meeks, it's called unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, we have a video on that.
Yes. By the way, if you did
I'm
not
getting
know,
the classes confused. I don't know what's from what class.
here's a fun IP fact. Here's a fun IP fact. Did you know that one of the most congested, crowded IP dockets, federal court dockets in the country is 25 miles away here in the Eastern District of Texas, in Marshall, Texas, a town of 30,000 people?
No.
That near Austin?
It is one of the most crowded dockets in the entire country. And this is a tiny little hamlet of 30,000 people that my parents and grandparents grew up in. And it has the most, Apple, Google, everybody sues out there in the Eastern District there. Just bizarre, weird as can be.
Yeah, but I just think it's about, the lack of knowing. And then some people don't desire to know, but some people just don't care. They just want to post online and just, go for it.
Well, I would understand if they put in that blood and sweat and time and money and sacrifice. And that's, I think, what usually happens.
A lot of people don't want to work for a lot of things. They want it to happen instantly.
See, rapid prototyping.
Yeah, we're the microwave generation, so they say.
John, is this still your slide?
Yeah, so I can just kind of run through this in the interest of time. Pharma, same thing. I advocate for IP protection. The process of bringing a drug to market, very rigorous. It takes a long time. It's expensive. R&D, many trials, FDA ups and downs. And a lot of companies don't bring it to market. You have sunk costs. And then those that do and are successful and get the FDA approval, they bring it to market. They have, this protection, but it only lasts for a short amount of time. And then, of course, generics flood the market. So the initial manufacturer's competitive edge and high profit window closes very quickly. So I think, for the public, public health, public well-being, without IP protection, many companies simply would not invest and they would not develop these drugs that help society in the end.
It's so expensive for them to develop them.
Of course.
What's the incentive?
Of course. They're motivated by profits, but, I have friends that work in these companies, and there's definitely a humanitarian push as well. It's both, I wouldn't say it's just profits. But it's very expensive. It takes a long time. There's so many that don't make it. And for those that do, they certainly deserve protection. And same thing for, trade secrets, Coke, Pepsi, KFC, whatever it may be. Their unique recipes deserve to be guarded. Without it, you're basically talking about products that would become commodities, and these companies would lose their competitive advantage. Their brand would be
just wrestle technological demons. So
I don't want to take away from anyone, but if you guys want, you guys can have a nice Friday. If everyone else wants to present one, or if you want to share, I am happy to listen, because you had to listen to mine. So whatever you would like.
Well, mine's won't take that long because I didn't put much on the slides. I tried not to be so wordy this week.
What number are you, Sasha?
Uh, 6 and 7, I think.
You guys, I love the graphics. Totally stepped it up this week.
Well, the only reason why I put graphics is because I saw you guys had it. So I was like, oh, let me go grab some pictures.
Somebody saw Meeks' email talking about graphics and being in there.
I saw y'all's. I was like, oh, wait, they're fancy this week. Let me go back and grab some.
Right?
I do have to say this video was really cute. It was long, but Starbucks did a at-home challenge during the quarantine. And I thought that was pretty cool, so I put it in there.
Cool.
So who's next? Or does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
Well,
Jeff and Sasha should go.
okay.
Oh, and Wendy
Can
too.
I record again so
Go
you guys
to the-
can have your talking part?
What happened?
Do you want to record again so you can?
Oh, I've been started recording.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
yeah,
never
we're
mind.
good.
Continue. I'm ready to listen.
Go to the slide before. I think it starts at 19. Yeah. Okay. So
Oh, sorry.
no, you're fine. So to piggyback on what I was saying earlier about the low cost leadership and the differentiation leadership. So basically, when you think of low cost, you just automatically assume that it's going to be the cheapest item, right? Nope, that's not what low cost leadership is. And I put a picture in here of UPS because I've worked for them in finance, and we would always put things like CSIs in place, and that's cost saving initiatives. So it wasn't that we were upping our price or giving the customer the lowest price. We were always trying to figure out how can we deliver at the altitude that we have to deliver at, but to save money. So, and it's only so much cost you can cut, but they want to cut it till they can't cut it anymore, if that makes sense. So that's why I used them in here instead of using like Walmart. You know, everybody knows Walmart is a low.
Yeah.
You're not getting the lowest price, but you assume you're getting the best price for that item or whatever. And then the next one, the difference of the two, and I chose these two because they were the main ones that we talked about within the text. There are several different strategies, right? But for the differentiation, I put Louis Vuitton in here. I was gonna use Gucci because that's what our professor used, but I thought about it. You can find a Gucci bag on sale. Louis Vuitton never goes on sale. Even if you go to a consignment shop, guess what? You're gonna pay almost as much as it would if it was brand new. They don't lose their value, and they've put it out there in the market. Like you focus on high end, high quality. Like you can go and get another purse that or anything that they sell, and it's way cheaper. But they have this perception that hey, you want to shop with us because our products are high end quality. They're gonna last long. You know, they have this perception that they're just the brand that you want to shop with, and they hold that because again, their products never go on sale. So I thought that was real interesting, and I can throw that out there. Could you go to the next slide, please?
That's great. You're also very well spoken, Sasha.
Thank you, girl. So the second part of this question, it asks you to, describe what strategy Starbucks have. And of course, we've already talked about it. Kaylee, you started, talking about that they weren't low cost, they focused on differentiation. And I agree. So basically, they created a need for high-end coffee. Like I went on their website and I saw how, in addition to what we read in the case, the CEO, Schwartz, right? That's his name, right? He wanted to create the Italian coffee house. He wanted to bring it back here. So that's what they did. They focused on gaining the market share and, with great coffee and building those long-term relationships. So that set them aside because they didn't just say, oh, I'm going to open up a coffee shop. No, they did all this research and actually built a culture that it's the third place. You're from work and home. Where do you want to go? Starbucks. You're not thinking about how much it costs when you go and buy their frappuccino or their coffee or their tea. You're like, oh, wait, I want to go and hang out at Starbucks. I'm going to go and get me some coffee and I may sit down and take a meeting. I may meet some friends. I may just go there to clear my mind. You know, they created this whole ambiance, like you said earlier, and it just sets them aside from everyone else. And I think that's going to continue to help them prosper in their longevity and survive for another, what, half a century almost. I didn't even know they was around that long.
Yeah.
But you know, it's worked for them, and I wouldn't change anything about it. I think they have great core values that has, you know, been able to sustain their business for so long. Now, I'm not sure about the profits in the future, but I think they'll be around for a pretty long time.
Well, prior to Starbucks, you couldn't just go somewhere and hang out. You couldn't be there all day. They'd like, why aren't you ordering?
Right.
So it really was a new concept. And I also thought it was very surprising that the owners at the time didn't really see his value. Didn't say, hey, become a partner. They just let him leave. You know, he left the company and then came back and bought it. But he was the one that had the vision. They didn't.
And you know, a lot of people, they can't see the big picture. Like our professor always says, see the big picture. A lot of people can't see that big picture. They're so focused on right now and, you know, tomorrow. They don't try to project out in 20 years. Like nobody's trying to think that far. Like he was a visionary. So, you know, he was able to see this and push it through and didn't let up on it. Because even when he left, he kind of stayed on as some C-level. I'm not sure what, I forgot what he was, but he stayed on and he stayed there. And because, you know, a lot of people like to get away from those core values because they're all about making profit, maximizing the profit. But you know, that's just my 2 cents on that slide.
Good. I agree.
Good job. Good work.
And then the next one is really quick. It goes back to talking about the
This one?
environmental analysis.
Is this the right one?
Yes.
Okay.
Just quickly, I gave some background like on the environmental analysis. Like I think it's very important and essential for any business. You have to look outside to see, you know, what's going on in the world. Because for one, you know, it's providing you all the resources you need to create your product or service. It helps you identify opportunities and threats so that you can either maximize or stand back, you know, and it shows you which direction you want to go in. Like, do you want to open a new business? Is it time to start? Should you wait a couple months or a year or two? You know, should you acquire that new company? How would that help your business, your current company? Is it time to launch a new product line or a new product, or should we wait? Should we not look into being innovative right now? Is this a good time for an expansion nationally or internationally for the matter of fact? You know, it just gives you direction. So that was my thought on the environmental analysis. And then the next two slides just break down the pestle and the Proctor's 5 forces. And really quickly, I didn't want to go into too much information on here because I felt like our conversation would kind of sum it up. But you know, it helps you under the pestle analysis. It helps you, like I said, identify and understand your strengths and weaknesses within the environment, right? It focuses on the political government influences, like, you know, we have at UPS, we donate money to the officials, but it's for them to lobby for us. So you know, you have to think about all those different types of things. As far as the economics, what are your spending habits for your target market? Like, do they have extra income to spend on this product or your service? You know, you want to think about all those things. Uh-oh, I lost you guys.
No, I hear you.
Oh, sorry. It blanked out, but it came back. Social, like what are the cultural trends? Like, you know, how Starbucks, they put their business, like they looked at the culture and they made it homey for you. You know, like what's the culture trend going on right now? Like what's next? Is this going to be a style next? If you have like a fashion boutique or something, like what are you going to sell? How are you going to be different from your competitors? And then technology, you know, everybody wants everything quickly and they want to automate everything. They want to replace human beings. You can do that, but you have to be careful. Like, how is that going to look to your customers that you're not, you know, helping the environment or helping the economy by hiring people? And then, like you said about COVID, those are environmental, uncontrollable events. Like, would you be able to weather that storm? I had a finance class last semester, and we were talking about different companies weathering basically COVID-19. And I read on how Hertz, they had $1 billion in cash on hand, but they still were suffering. Like it wasn't enough. So, you want to think about all those type of things. And then lastly, the legal part, you just want to health and safety. You want to make sure that you're not breaking any laws and you're in compliance and, your product or service is where it needs to be. It's at that statute or limit. And then the next one, I'll be really quickly, the Porter's 5 Forces. That basically helps you understand how to be profitable. The suppliers, we know they want to always give you less and charge you more. But you have to build those relationships with your suppliers to like, hey, I understand X, Y, and Z, but I need this from you. Like if I'm going to pay you this amount, then I need this kind of service from you. Or don't try to overstate what your product is worth when we know that it's not worth that. So you have to think about that. Like before I read this, I didn't think about all these different type of forces that you have going against you in this fashion. Your buyers, they're always looking for a sale. So you want to make sure that, you with like the low cost leadership or strategy, you look for those type of folks that always are looking for a sale versus if you're a differentiator, you don't really care if your product goes on sale or not because you're not targeting those type of customers, right? You have to pick what you want to target or who you want to target and be okay with that. The substitutes, you have your imitators. They want to offer the same good service you do for less, which, it can hurt you. But if you build that customer relationship, you don't really have to worry about that because they won't be able to get that same experience from the competitor or the substitute or knockoff or whatever you want to call it that they would get from you. And then of course, there's always somebody new trying to enter the market. But, with this, if you do your environmental analysis, you can see if those new folks are going to hinder your profits. And by you doing the Proctor's 5 Forces, you actually see how profitable this market is going to be or can be if you're trying to enter it. And then of course your existing competitors. So basically I felt that both of those analyses are very helpful with being in business and staying in business, honestly, because it helps you understand your limitations and it gives you a different light on the business or that market that you're trying to infiltrate. I know I said a lot and I was trying to rush through it.
One thing that I thought of when you were on this slide and talking about the cultural trends, something going back to Starbucks that they've done is they've reached out to the younger generation. Yeah. And they created drinks for children. Not that I think they're healthy for the kids, but a lot of parents are now taking their kids to Starbucks after school.
Witness the unicorn frappuccino.
The unicorn frappuccino.
Yikes.
So the kids are wanting to go there now. So they're like working on that next generation.
I agree. My daughter, she did all-star cheering and they had to write a list of all the things that they like and they like their favorite restaurants and favorite beverages. And she had 2 big sisters because it was like a trio and they both had Starbucks as their favorite restaurant. And I was like, wait, you guys are 12.
Right.
But I think it makes them feel a little grown up too.
Why is
like McDonald's is for babies, and they're a little bit more sophisticated.
It's that I feel cool because I'm there.
Yeah.
You're cool walking around with your Starbucks cup.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But they have reached out to that next generation, which is very, very smart.
Mm-hmm.
Without resorting to like a kiddie menu.
Right.
Yeah.
Which they would see, the kids would view as, not a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point.
Well, we're at the end of our time. I think our slides look great, you guys. One thing that we need to cover is how we want to do the points.
John and Jeff, did you guys want to do any slides? I feel like you kind of got gypped, if anyone.
I think
And Mindy, honestly. Do you guys want to do
covered
any?
a lot of what was on my slides, if anyone wants to go back and look through them. A lot of it is similar information.
Great. Maybe I'll talk next time so you guys can be more on it.
And I felt the same way. Like last week, I was like, I think a lot of these questions kind of overlap one another.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, because like how my question, it was piggybacking off of both John and Kaylee. Like our questions were like intertwined with one another.
Totally agree, Sasha. Maybe next week we kind of start and just see where the discussion goes instead of trying to structure like present one, present two, present. Like, let's get into the material and see where it leads us.
Yeah, I agree.
Connect the dots.
Yes.
And what?
We're becoming
Connect the dots.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's do that next week. You know.
Yeah.
And Sasha, I would
we'll
like to
finish
see more
quicker too. We'll
Air
finish
Mays.
quicker.
Sasha, I would like to see more Air Mays with Kelly and Birkin bags, please.
Okay. I will do that.
So was everybody okay with the way of filling out the slides ahead of time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think Jeff, it will be super easy for you.
Yes.
You'll just get the
Front
video,
to back and all that stuff.
just get the video from Sasha and then just
Yep.
download this. Before we leave though, what do we want to do with the dollar amounts here? I'm
okay if we take dollar amounts off mine because I made everyone switch, so you can put me lower than everyone else today. I'm not offended by it, so.
And by the way, on the last one, I just put everyone equal at the end. I didn't do the more for me.
Yeah, if we try to give you points, you gotta take.
I know, but I'm like, no. I mean, it was just, you know what? It's sort of like tip pooling, if you will.
Well, the thing I
Weight
like
staffing,
about
it all goes, you know, we all sink or swim together, and so everyone got the same amount. Everyone's gonna have a hard week. So I'm like, no, I just did it 20, 20, 20, 20, all the way down.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
I really like that we all really are doing our best here. You know, I've heard of other groups and they're really struggling. And you guys have been awesome to work with.
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories already. I have a friend who's too, so.
You know.
Next meeting, is everybody okay with this?
Yeah, Thursday could work for me next week unless something weird happens. So, thank you all again for being
We'll do the same thing. We'll sign on Monday if that works for everyone.
Yeah, that works.
Maybe we'll, some people that had 2 this week will get 1 next week and vice versa, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
So Thursday, 8 o'clock. And thank you.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Jeff, let us know if you have any problems uploading.
Will do. We're gonna work on it right now and hopefully get it done
And
tonight.
don't forget to, if you could CC me too, Jeff.
Yes, will do. Absolutely.
Cool.
All right, thanks everyone. Great work.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.